everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. This week will be a special one where I'm going to be sharing with you the longer version, the details, stuff that some people don't know that went down throughout the Chris Watts case. I covered this case in a whisper. If you're interested, it will be linked on the top of the screen. But this one, it will have a lot more information that was revealed after the trial or during the trial. Now, this week will be a soft-spoken special, and I know that most people prefer the whisper. But when I did the Aaron Hernandez week-long special, a lot of people pointed out that I usually do those specials in whisper, and that they wanted to have a soft-spoken playlist with maybe the same case and details. So, for those of you who requested that, who suggested that, this week is going to be for you. My throat is failing me at the time, as you can probably tell, but I'll just have to cut the coughing and stuff. I have nothing but my regular asthma, but bothering me, so if there's quite a few cuts, then you know why. Now, I'm gonna start the story from the beginning, but since it includes a lot of details, it kind of takes us back and forth to the time that Shanann, Celeste, and Bella disappeared, and kind of the beginning of Shanann and Chris' relationship, and back to after when they were married, and it kind of jumps around. So I decided to do a 5-part series where I can take the time in each one of them and give you as many details as I can in a slower pace. So if you really care about knowing about this case and the latest details that I could find, then it would be easier to follow along. Now, on August 13, this was a Monday in 2018, a 911 call was made by Nicole Atkinson. She called 911 at around 1:30 p.m. and she tells the dispatcher that she dropped off her friend, Shanann Watts, at around 1:40 a.m. that same day, and she dropped her off at her house after a business trip to Arizona. She mentions to the dispatcher that she's been trying to get in touch with her friend, Shanann, and that she's worried. Shanann is diabetic, and she's also 15 weeks pregnant, and was not picking up the phone, so she thought that maybe something happened and she needed help. Shanann missed her doctor appointment that she was talking about the night before when she was picked up. It was a very important one, and she missed it. She was very good at getting back at people. If anybody would call her, she would pick up the phone. And if anybody would text, she replied back almost immediately. This was very odd. She was an active person, and part of her job was to pick up calls and stay in contact. Now, Nicole and her son went to Shanann's home initially before calling 911, and they peeked through the garage window. Now, I have to say that these are huge houses. I think they said about $400,000 houses in a very beautiful neighborhood. They had some kind of that Bell security camera. And, Nicole and her son, Nicholas, they were both worried. So, according to my research, Nicholas was every once in a while dog sitting for the Watts, for Shanann and Chris. So he knew how to get around the house, and apparently he had to step on his mom's car to peek through the window to see if the car was inside. Again, at this point, Nicole thought that maybe Shanann had some kind of a diabetic episode inside and maybe was unconscious. And when they peek inside, they can see Shanann's SUV parked inside the garage. Now, since this is more of a new neighborhood and fancier houses, they had one of those doors that have a code. And Nicole did know the code to get in the house. But when she tried to open the door, she could only open it for a few inches because the latch was on. But she could peek inside, not enough to see anything that she needed to. But somebody purposely put the latch on. So if anybody had the code and wanted to get in, couldn't. This was very odd again because Shanann had the idea that that was a safe feature, so she wouldn't put the latch on usually. But once she's peeking through that little opening, she sees Shanann's flip-flops by the door. These flip-flops were described not only as the ones that she was using when she dropped her off, but these were the flip-flops that she would use. She loved them. They were comfortable, and she wasn't so far along pregnant, but she still felt the most comfortable in them, so she was using them all the time. And Nicole, of course, realized that Shanann must have been inside. Her car is there, the flip-flops are there. What if she was unconscious inside? She calls, before calling 911, she calls Chris and explains, but he seems to have it, like he took it in a very quote-unquote casual way. And he told Nicole that Shanann had a play date with one of their daughter's friends. And it just didn't add up. Of course, Nicole didn't call Chris and say, that her car is inside, her flip flops are there. She just casually called and wondered about Shanann. However, she knew that Shanann wouldn't leave without her car, without her comfortable flip flops. Somebody would have had to pick her up, maybe, but it still wasn't something that she would do. On top of that, the doctor's appointment being missed when Shanann purposely wanted to come back by that day. Even though her flight was delayed and everything, she wanted to be home because she had that very important doctor appointment. So everything was a little bit odd, but for Nicole, after putting all those things together, they were becoming something even more serious. At this point, and getting no help from Chris, Nicole asked her son, Nicholas, to try to open the garage door to trigger the alarm that she knew they had, and maybe wake up Shanann if she was, I don't know what she thought, because if she was unconscious, maybe the noise would wake her up. Now, I'm assuming that she also wanted to trigger the alarm to see if the alarm company would send somebody or call somebody to go check on the house. But when they tried to do that, they realized that the alarm wasn't activated. The alarm earlier that day was deactivated, and later on we will learn that it was done from Chris's phone. And I'll explain that in a little bit, because again, it's one of those things that don't add up. Nicole decided to go to the doctor's office and check if, in fact, Shanann didn't go to her appointment. When she went there, they confirmed that she never showed up, that she didn't call and or reschedule. So Nicole and her son Nicholas went back to the house. They called Chris again and told him that they were going to call the police. He says, don't, I'm on my way home and I'll open the door. However, Nicole at this point already made that call to 911, as I mentioned before. This is how everything started. This is just the beginning of the developing things that you heard on the media. But here is, I think that with all the details that I will be adding, now a lot more things are going to start to make sense. Again, this is a nice neighborhood, peaceful, nothing that it's usually reported there. So the dispatcher sent an officer to do some kind of a wellness check. He put the code as Nicole gave him the code and peeked inside. He called, but no one answered. The windows, the sliding doors, they were all locked. Now, again, at this point, nobody's thinking that there was a murder or anything like that. Nicole kept telling the officer that she thought that maybe she had an insulin related incident and that she might needed help. Nicole also mentions to the officer that she had an insulin, I'm going to call it event because I really don't know what happened, but it was related to her illness and her diabetes that she had back in Arizona. So it could be that she was struggling with it and something worse happened when she got home. Now, the officer calls Chris because he wants to open the garage door. Chris tells him over the phone that the garage door, it's not working. Well, the door is working, but the code is not working. But he would be home soon. And that's what happened. He got home and he opened the garage door with his little remote. And they all entered the house. Nicole, the friend, Nicholas, her son, Chris, and the officer. Chris also, at this point, gave permission to the officer to search the house for Shanann. The house was empty, but Shanann's small black suitcase was there by the stairs. There was her wedding ring on the nightstand that Nicholas and Chris found. Shanann's phone was inside a couch, kind of like, you know, when it kind of sleeps in between the cushions. The officer asks Chris to put the password to check Nicole's phone, and Chris says that he doesn't know her password. But Nicole did, and it was their unborn child due date. Remember that Shanann was pregnant and they were having a boy. His name was going to be Nico, and the code was his due date. Now the officer checked, but she didn't make any calls. But there were a lot of missed calls and texts from lots of different people, not only Nicole's. Chris at that point decided that he needed to go for a walk. So he tells the officer that's what he's going to do to clear his head. But he ended up not going anywhere and staying in their porch. They had in their possession, the officer found wallet, they found cash, they found her ID, her medication. Everything was at home. The SUV was there with the keys inside, the garage opener. So if she did in fact leave with her daughters, why not taking anything? No cash, no nothing. How was she going to survive without it? And if she in fact left to go for a play date, how was she planning to get in? The latch was at the door, and she had no means to get inside the garage because the code was not working. If you put all these things together, it wasn't looking good for Shanann and her daughters. Did somebody pick her up? How did she plan to come back to the house and open the door? Get back inside? Now, Shanann worked from home and she would never leave her phone behind either, or even ignore it. She needed to be available for her team of people that she recruited into the company, for her customers and the people that she actually involved and were under her in this Thrive company. So, why would she go to a play date with no phone? For the girls, they found the EpiPen and asthma medicine. Shanann was very well known for being the kind of mother that was on top of things, especially health related. And it seemed very, very, very suspicious that she wouldn't take those things. CZ was extremely allergic to some kind of nut. I'm not sure if it's peanuts or nuts in general. And she knew that it was a life or death situation kind of thing. And she wouldn't leave the house without that. I understand that, and that would have been a really big red flag for me too. I have asthma and sometimes I forget my inhaler, but I get so anxious when I do. Because you never know. You never know how bad it's going to be and what it's going to trigger it. Especially if you have allergy-related asthma. You don't know if you're going to walk by a tree that it's going to give you some kind of a very bad allergic reaction where you won't be able to breathe. And so, if it's so important for me, I can't even imagine what it would be to have a child that needs that at all times. Again, things were looking more and more suspicious. Some other things that they found that were very interesting, it's that Shanann's bed was stripped to the mattress. The pillowcases, the pillows, and, well, I think it was the pillows and the fitted sheet were on the floor, but the top sheet was missing. Something that it will later come up when the case develops. When they continued to search, another thing that it was noted and later on helpful was that the girls' rooms had their beds unmade. I mean, and it wasn't, how can I explain this? It's not unusual to see a toddler's bed unmade, but it looked suspicious. That's what he stated, at least initially, the officer. They also noted another bed that was not made, and it was in the basement, as if somebody slept there recently. When they asked Chris tells the officer that sometimes he would sleep down there. The police also noticed a doorbell camera, or I don't know if it's called Ring. I don't even know if it's from that company, where you can see Shanann getting home, and later on, of course, Nicole and Nicholas opening the door, or trying to. So, since they didn't have much there, they talked to the neighbors, and the next door neighbor, Nathaniel, he had some kind of a video surveillance system that once they went through it, it showed Nicole's car leaving at 1:48 a.m. dropping off, of course, Shanann home. Then at 5:27 a.m., it shows Chris on a black shirt opening the garage door. Then you can see how he gets his truck that was parked outside, his F-250. And this is a pickup truck that he backed up to the garage. You can't see very well what he was doing, but you can a little. You can see shapes. Okay, that's pretty much what you can see from that particular camera. But it was Chris, and he said that it was him. But all you can see is that he loaded a red gas can to it, and he claimed that he was loading tools, and that's why he backed up the truck to the garage. When the police checked, they had to check his truck. They found the fire extinguisher, a shovel, a gas can, and toolboxes. Now, something I didn't know, but it's kind of interesting in how it helped this investigation, is that the truck was provided by his employer. It has a GPS, and it's a very specific GPS. It tells you when they turn on the car, when they turn it off, where they parked it, where they went. I mean, it's not your traditional GPS, but it's a little bit more complete since it's a company truck. So, of course, the authorities were suspicious and things didn't add up. And they needed to talk to the employer in order to get the permission to check everything and everywhere that that truck went that day. Now, that is where I'm going to end part 1 of this video, because it kind of gives you an idea of how this started. Tomorrow, I am going to share with you the interview with Chris, what he told the police initially, how it contradicts later on, what they found when they looked into that GPS, and the precision of pretty much where Chris was that day, where he stopped, and how is that connected to when they found the bodies. Again, I hope that by doing this in different episodes, it's going to make it a little bit more clear. If you're watching this in the future, then make sure to click on the playlist down below, where you can watch all the episodes and get an idea of a very sad case and a very lengthy investigation. At the end on Friday, we're going to talk about Chris himself, what he's doing now, what's going on with him, and what I think happened. My theory. There's a lot of, Chris was a narcissist and psychopath, and, well, I agree he might be a narcissist, but there's a lot more that doesn't really add up to a sociopath, or maybe more to a sociopath, but not so much to a psychopath. And that is how he's been described. So we'll explore all that on Friday. I hope that you join me. And again, if you're watching this in the future, there will be a playlist where you can check out all the episodes. Thanks for being there, and I'll be back tomorrow with part 2.